Hello and good evening, everyone. Oh man, there we go. There we go. Gotta love technology. Gotta love technology. Sorry, it's the nails. It's taking a while. Okay, dim. Hello, good evening, everyone. I hope that everybody's been having a great and wonderful Wednesday. This is a wonderful time in the year 2020 where we are getting ready to wrap up the year, and hopefully we've been able to accomplish some things. And if we haven't, that's okay. It's not too late. We still have about 6 to 7 weeks left. So, we can always strategize and come up with some great solutions to get our goals in order. Welcome to Strategy Sessions, our live stream web series that is brought to you by Strategic Public Relations Consulting, and Strategic PRC works with many different organizations and avenues to support their dreams, create partnerships, and to build brands. And we do this by providing internal and external communications support to businesses, nonprofits, and political entities. So if you would like more information on the services that we provide or how you can get involved with some of the things that we're doing, please visit strategicprconsulting.com. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I'm super excited about our guest that we have speaking tonight, and his name is Merrell Johnson. And some of you in the Columbia area may be very familiar with Merrell. He is very widely known, but I get to call him colleague and friend. So tonight's show is going to be surrounding supporting your dreams through investor relations. And investor relations is just another piece of jargon that means fundraising, relationship management, and donor relations. So if you are in the nonprofit world, this might sound a little familiar to you, but if you are not, we're here to educate you and make sure that you're making the correct decisions when it comes to providing investors with the information that they need and having quality relationships with them. Development is very important, not only in the fundraising and nonprofit fields, but also in the realms of business, because how many of you guys have a really great idea, but you don't have anybody that can back it financially? Right. So that is why we've brought Merrell here tonight. He is going to show us the way, and we're so excited about the things that he's been doing in our community. And we're going to continue to press forward and give him some time to really talk to you guys. And we're also going to allow some question and answers to come forth as well. So just to give you a little background on Merrell, he is a military brat, but has found his roots originally, I guess, in Sumter, South Carolina is where he is hailing from, but he serves as the Development and Marketing Officer for Mercy. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Mercy, Mercy is the Mental Illness Recovery Center Incorporated. Mercy offers a full service amount of behavioral health care and has been in existence for decades. And so his job is to raise awareness about mental health and to secure financial donations through support programs such as permanent housing, payee services, benefits assistance, and other services. So Merrell himself has been recognized as a 2018 National Association of Social Worker as the Public Citizen of the Year. He is part of the state's top 20 under 40, and he is also a part of Columbia Business Monthly's Best and Brightest 35 and Under, and of course, a personal favorite of mine, the SC Black Page's top 20 under 40. So Merrell has received his Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communications and Journalism with a major in Public Relations from the University of South Carolina, go Gamecocks. And he also has his MBA with a specialization in marketing from Louisiana State University at Shreveport. So we are so excited to have Merrell joining us tonight. Merrell, welcome.
Thank you so much, Heather. You really have amped me up a lot. And
It's what I do.
when I hear a bio talking about me, I'm like, well, who is this person? Because I don't feel that great. And hello to everybody out there. I can't see who is on, but I want you to know that I'm saying hello to you and that I'm so glad that you can join us tonight. I think Heather has already given you all the rundown of everything we're going to talk about. And so, Heather, I don't know if you can see questions from your end, but if anyone does have questions, please feel free to chime in and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I would like to start off by saying that everything that I'm giving you is my own opinion. I don't want this to be any reflection of any organization that I'm a part of, AFP, Mercy, AAF, anything. This is all just me right here. I also want to tell you all that this is my second year. I'm going into my third year of working in development. So everything that I'm about to give you, I hope that there are some people who are young in development or some people who are starting off that might be able to take these nuggets and run with them, because it was certainly helpful to me as I learned and carved and created this role and still creating this role. I think it's very, very important to make sure that there are a couple of things that you need to know as you walk into this role. And the first thing is, Heather mentioned donor relations. When I started working for the organization I worked with, it was because I had a huge love for for the work they do in the community. They help a lot of people, our community's most vulnerable. And so I was introduced to them to Leadership Columbia, and it turned out to be a match made in heaven. I'm so thankful that the opportunity was made available for me, and it has been a lot of fun. When I stepped in the role, I think I set my expectations for myself super high, and it wasn't until my executive director told me once before to grant myself grace. And so I want to give you all that bit of information because my executive director is someone who I respect highly, and she only gives me the best advice ever. So if I can pay that information forward, I'm going to give that to you tonight. In the realm of donor relations, what I would say is Mercy has been for a long time, 60 years is what we're celebrating. But what I would say, not only as it relates to Mercy or any other organization I'm involved with, but just in life in general, staying in contact with your people is pretty much the base foundation for donor relations. Listening to them, finding out more about them, and kind of keeping them in the forefront of your mind is really, really important. I know that oftentimes we get so busy that we don't have the option or the opportunity, or sometimes we just forget to check in on somebody and say, happy birthday. Or if you have a friend who maybe has gone into the hospital, you forget to call them and say, how are things going? Are you okay? Do you need anything? And this year, in the middle of a pandemic, well, I don't even know if this is the middle. We don't know where we're at in this timeline.
Really, right.
But I really put that in the forefront, and I've done that through several ways. We have increased our communications. Typically, I'm not a fan of spamming people's emails because I'm a person who gets a bunch of emails every single day, and I can't keep up with everything. But I also know that there are a lot of people right now who are needing that personal contact, who need someone to check in on them and see how they're doing. And so that's been one way, just emailing them, maybe a quick text message, because not everyone likes to talk on the phone. We do live in the year 2020. I feel like 15 or 20 years ago, everyone wanted to chat. Let's give someone a call. You hang out with your phone and to be connected to a cord, and you'd be in the hallway for hours, right?
Right.
Well, people aren't doing that anymore. Right now, people are like, just send me a quick text. I have a godmother who, when we chat, we don't chat for long. Sometimes we're just like checking in to make sure that we're all okay. And so that text message might look like something with me sending her saying Marco Polo, and then she responding back and saying, how are you? Just to kind of like get the conversation going and to let her know that I'm thinking of her. But that same concept can be taken over to your donors as well. A lot of people in our world, in our arena, they give because they care about the organization and the organization's mission. And so knowing that you have that common bond is very, very special, because what it means is you don't have to search for conversation. Mm-hmm. It just means that you're like, hey, this is what we're doing right now. How are you? Or you can flip it and say, how are you? And just so you know, this is what we're doing right now. But I always suggest ending it with, if there's anything that you need, please let us know. And you have to say that from a sincere point of view. Your heart has to be very, very sincere about that. Do as much as you possibly can, because right now we're all in the same boat and we're all trying to figure this thing out together. And I know that everyone has noticed that the Together Apart hashtag started trending this year, and really nothing could be more truer than that sentence and that phrase. So I say that to say, as you're reaching out to people via text messaging or email or even phone calling, just make sure that you have a very sincere heart when you're reaching out to people. One example that I can give is earlier this year, I contacted one of our donors, cold called them, and just to kind of check in. It was one of the things I've been doing. And they're like, I'm so glad you called me because I live alone and I'm experiencing what I think might be depression. And so I was like, well, I'm not a therapist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know that we have really been trying to give people tips and advice on things they could be doing in order to make sure they're taking care of their mental health during the pandemic. Yeah. And so I was quickly able to direct him to our Facebook page and to a specific video. And I think it did a lot of help. And it's also a series of videos that I go back and look at a lot because I'm in it too, right? So I think it's very important to make sure that we're just at least checking in on everyone. And I think that goes a long way because we don't know what people are battling when we call them. So just do that due diligence. It may seem tedious, especially if you have a huge donor list. You can try to do it the most efficient way possible by sending out a mass email. I think we're all familiar with MailChimp or Constant Contact. Mm-hmm. I think we're also familiar with the fact that a lot of those end up going in people's junk boxes. Yeah. And one of the things I'm going to give you, one tip I'm going to give you to kind of help make sure that your message gets there is this thing called segmenting. And I'm sure if you're not familiar with it, then this is going to be new. But if you are familiar with it, just hang on for a quick second. I want to make sure that everyone gets the same information. Segment, what happens is, let me give y'all the backstory before I give you the front story. When you send out a mass email, and it's more than 25 people, 25 to 30 people, Outlook servers, email servers will automatically flag it as a mass email and or junk mail. And so oftentimes, and the only reason why I know this is because I had to do a lot of research. So oftentimes if you send big emails to people, it's not getting to them. It really isn't getting to them. And so they're not just ignoring you. The reality of it is it's probably gotten flagged by email servers and said, this is a mass email, we're gonna throw this in junk. Even if your ISBN has been verified, your email address has been verified, it looks a certain way when it comes across the mail server. And I mean, we can relate that to us when we get a bunch of mail in our mailbox. We're like, let me find stuff that really matters. And everything else is junk, right? So it's the same concept in the digital world. When you segment, you're actually taking your big list of donors and you're breaking them down into smaller chunks. And so what that means is when you send that email, it could be the same email out to different segments, what it means is that your open rate will increase. And we all love that. It takes a little bit more work, but if our goal is to make sure we're staying engaged with our donors, checking in on them, finding out if anything they need, it's worth it. It's well worth it. I don't know off the top of my head what the return on investment on that is, other than for me, a very soft one, just to let my people know, people who I love and care about, that I'm thinking of them. And the next one would be the phone calls. I know we all hate phone calls nowadays. I'm still a fan of them, only because I am so tone deaf in emails that someone could be yelling at me and I have no idea. And also I can send an email and people might think that I'm yelling at them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not my intent. At least with the phone call, you can hear a real voice. You can also hear tone. And also it can really help take somebody's mind away from something. We look at our phones a lot during the day and email just adds to that looking at the phone. But actually taking the phone and then putting it up to your ear is a complete distraction. And I think that's really, really helpful because what happens is when you call somebody and you're like, well, hey, their tone automatically readjusts and their body and their mind refocuses. And I think that's really important. And over time, you're not going to get a return on investment immediately. But those soft but direct and those purposeful calls will keep you at the forefront of your donor's mind. Now, if you're calling and you're asking for a hard ask, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet. I think that a lot of people, even people who've been in development who I've talked to for a long time, have said it's so awkward sometimes when you're calling and saying, hey, can you donate $100,000? Can you donate $10,000? Can you donate $25? Can you donate $5? It's always awkward when you're asking for money. Right. And I would say that I have had a very unique experience. Before I started working for the organization I'm working with now, I worked with a bunch of attorneys. And in their career field, there's this one point where they talk about money, and they talk about it often. And one piece of advice I got from my friend was, look, you have got to make it less awkward. Everyone knows it's coming at some point or other. You talk about money when you're paying for gas, when you're paying for food, when you're paying for bills. It's a part of our life. And if we shift our focus about how we think about asking, it makes things a lot easier. So I took that information and I harvested it, and it's really, really true. So now when I call donors and I'm trying to make it ask, Mercy right now, we're in the middle of our Diamond Jubilee campaign. And we've been pushing things out on social media. We've been pushing things out through our mass email servers. But I found that people are more likely to respond and say yes when you send them a text and or you call them. And it's not like, it would not be something like when you call your mom or your dad, like, hey, I need to borrow $50 because I got a flat tire, or something fun like that. Not fun. It would be more of like, hey, I want to talk to you really quick about this campaign we have going on right now. It would be really, really helpful to us. I know that you supported us in the past. Do you mind if I tell you about it? And would you be interested in donating? And that's it. It does not have to last very long. I think my text messages that I've been sending out have lasted all of maybe 15 minutes, and that's including the lapse in between someone reading it and someone opening it and someone responding. And before you know it, it works out well. So for us, right now, that can look like maybe $1,000 ask. 15 minutes for $1,000 is well worth it, right? That's how you have to kind of think about it. But then it could also be a $100,000 text message. Like, hey, can we chat about this later on? Yes. And then the next thing you know, a 20-minute conversation, a 15-minute text turns into like, I want to get on board with this. Yeah. So it's really, really powerful and impactful. I understand that not everyone is extroverted. Heather, I think you and I have some very big, very extroverted personalities. We speak up, we say what's on our mind, we want people to, we love everyone. It's just part of us. And I think that can make some people uncomfortable. So that's another rule. Know your room. Know who you're talking to.
Read the room.
I have definitely missed that one before. I'm like, oh gosh, I might have been too intense for that person.
Right.
And I also need to remember that as I'm moving through life, like sometimes, Merrell, not everybody is happy to see you. And that's okay. It's definitely okay. But that would be, just read the room, know who you're talking to. And what that means is you also have to kind of do some research on the people that you're going to be around. And that is very, very important. One of my dear friends who, Heather, you might know him, his name is Matt Bennett at the United Way. He's a former CEO.
I think I'm familiar.
He's working for this organization, and we went to a training last year, and he just gave some fabulous advice. And he said, spend the time doing the research on the people who are supporting you. Mm-hmm. And, you're doing that not because you want to become familiar with, what all they have access to in terms of finances, but also just because you want to know about their personality and their life story as well. And I think we kind of, in some ways, do that when we're trying to meet new friends, right? We want to know, oh my gosh, do we have anything in common? Do we like marketing and advertising? Do we like PR? Let's chat with each other. This would be perfect. We do that when we think about our professional networking options, AAF, PRSSA, Association of Fundraising Professionals. I'm going to come back to all those in a second. We think about that, like who is in the room with me that we might be able to connect with, and maybe we can share resources, maybe we can grow together, maybe we can partner together. There are a bunch of different opportunities, and I think it's important to stay optimistic when you do the work that you do on a daily basis. So we talked about phone calls, we talked about text messages and emails, and the very last one, and this is I'm gonna follow my sword here because I don't do this very well. Face-to-face interactions. I have a lot of friends who are like, let's meet for coffee, let's meet for lunch, and while I would love to do that, that is I'm weak there. I'm very weak there, and I would like to strengthen that. But oftentimes, again, as I said earlier, having that face-to-face interaction, it gives so much more energy than an email or even a text message or even a phone call. Not only do you get tone, not only do you feel body language, but you also get to feel the warmth and the happiness and the emotions that that person is feeling right then and there. And so I will urge you all to go ahead and schedule those coffee meetings. You may drink coffee until the point where you are up all night. And I think that might be a little bit of my aversion. I'm like, oh my gosh, more coffee, and you drink water or something like that. But it really does help, and it is worth it. And it might not look like specifically a donor. Right now, we're in the process of trying to launch one of our first virtual fundraisers, and we're partnering with a bunch of different businesses in downtown Columbia on Main Street. And because they have such busy work schedules, sometimes you have to just get in front of them, to just take that moment away from them so that they can give it to you. Because I'm sure we're all there, but sometimes you send a text message or read it, you think you have responded to it, and the next thing you know, 3 days have gone by, and you feel guilty. So that's just the other component of it. The emails work, the text messaging and the phone calls work, and then also the face-to-face interaction. I know right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. It can still be done if the person is very comfortable with it, and if you're comfortable with it. My suggestion has always been, even before COVID, please stay 6 feet away from me. I like my personal bubble. And now we have the added benefit of wearing stylish masks while we talk to people. So
Right.
So those are my three kind of like tiers of how you can go about doing things. I hope that that is some good information for you all. I know that sometimes it can be easier said than done, but it really does work. It really, really does. And when people hear about whatever your organization is doing, I think people are excited about it. People get excited about getting involved in their community. People get excited about having the option and the opportunity to like step up and do something, be part of the change. And I think people get excited about saying, "Oh my gosh, yes, I'm working with this group. They're doing some great work." So that's really, really helpful.
Awesome.
Do you? I know I don't know if this is supposed to be Q&A. I know.
Oh, there are questions.
Okay, let's hop in on the questions.
Okay, great. So you and I speak fundraising speak.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't take for granted that everybody who's listening knows this terminology and knows what options are out there for them when they're looking to start a nonprofit or start a business. What are some different avenues, different mediums that folks can utilize in order to gain funds? I know in our conversations, government grants are really big for the organization that you work with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Others that folks can get involved with.
Right, that's a really good question. So there are three tiers to that too. That's how I think about it. There are the individual donors, right? And those can be people who donate $1. Those can be people that donate $100,000. You're asking, how do you find those people? Well, one of the ways that you can do that is to start with your friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
I do that all the time for everything that I'm doing. People say don't over ask, and I think that might be the golden rule, but for me, nothing beats a failure but a try. So
Oh yeah.
I will ask and I will go back to that well over and over and over again. And if they say no, I completely understand. It's okay. There are no hard feelings, but I always start with my friends and family and I break them down into tiers. Who do I know who can possibly donate $1,000? Who do I know who can donate $500? Who do I know who can donate $25? And then I also have my friends who might not be able to donate monetarily, but they will be great ambassadors for what I'm doing. They can speak to people, they can speak up on our behalf when they're out in public. All that is word of mouth is best from marketing. Heather, but like word of mouth, it always has been and it always will be. And so and the reason behind that is because when you have someone who has personally had contact with A brand or B brand or C brand, A, B, or C, and they can speak on that behalf, then it carries way more weight than a commercial, a billboard, anything in any print news ad. It's just a different realm, and it's very, 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 very powerful. And one review I can give you on that one is if you think about when you go to Amazon and you look at the reviews of the product, you want to know what people who have purchased that product have been saying about it, right?
Right.
It's a very similar concept. So I would always say, to answer the question, hopefully directly, would be go directly to your friends and family first. And before you even do that, you need to set your goal. What are you trying to hit? How much money are you trying to raise? And then you also need to be able to break that bad boy out to be like, well, we need $25,000 and it will cover X, Y, Z, A, B, C. It's very, very important because if you are making a big ask like that and you're going to, I don't know, 25, 30, 50, 60 different people trying to get that money together, it's going to be really, really important that you know exactly what you're going to be spending that money on. You can lay that information out, not only for you to stay focused, but also for transparency purposes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There are some organizations in Columbia around the whole state of South Carolina that you can also seek funding from. United Way is one of them. Another one is here in the Midlands is the Central Carolina Community Foundation. I think United Way and CCCF work very well together, making sure that our community is taken care of. And they have a bunch of different types of grants that you can apply for. Some are for tried and true proven nonprofit organizations that have been here for a long, long time. And they also have grants that are, they call them like mini grants for people who are trying to start up. And, I think when people hear grants, they get very scared and very like frustrated with having to write a grant. But I will say that CCCF, they have great staff there. I know one of my dear friends, Jamisha, I love being able to call her and like, hey, this is what we got going on. Do you think this is something that will work well for us? And she'll kind of walk me through, well, maybe not, maybe so. Also Merrell Johnson there, who has been absolutely fantastic to work with. And so we do have people who they want nonprofits to apply. They want them to succeed. And so if you're feeling like you're hanging out there on a limb by yourself, I promise you that you're not. So please check out United Way's website. The Central Carolina Community Foundation's website is
yourfoundation.org.
Yourfoundation.org. And just take a look at what they have going on. You can also look at the applications for some of the grants before you apply for them. That's always something you should do. Take a look at the requirements for that. Take a look at the application beforehand, and then go ahead and craft your message around that. It's really, really helpful. And then the last one would also be, so we're doing a lot of 3s today. I wish we could do 4s because Beyonce would love that. But the last one would be going after some of those big federal grants. Those are oftentimes $1 million multi-year grants. And at my job, we have a team. I'm not part of that particular aspect of it just because it's so detailed and so specific to the high-level clinical work that we do, that oftentimes we do have like our clinicians actually like tie in so that they can make sure that the details are accurate and proper on that one. But what you can do if you're new and starting up, just find you a grant writer. And I say that so flippantly, but I promise you, it's like, just find you a grant writer and go for it.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. But let me tell you something. I also happen to know where you can go to find your grant writer. The internet. Check out Facebook. Do a search. If you're in Columbia, go to Soda City Connectors Facebook page. Join that one. Make sure you answer all 3 questions. Otherwise, we'll let you through. And just put it out there. Does anyone know a grant writer? You'll be surprised at who has the experience. And you'll also be surprised at how it's worth it. It really is. And like once you have them do 1 or 2 or 3 for you, then you'll understand how they write it, and then you can start doing it yourself. So it's really, really helpful. Are there any more questions out there, Heather? And did I answer that one?
Yes, you did. And to be quite honest, these questions are my questions because I had questions.
Okay, go for it.
I had questions. So what is the value of reciprocity when you're thinking about donor relationships? I had a conversation with a key donor a couple of months ago, and he was very transparent, and he said, folks like the idea of giving and getting involved and being a part of something greater than themselves, but sometimes they feel as though there is not a return on the investment that is as tangible as they would like. What are your thoughts on reciprocity in the donor relationship management piece of things?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up. One of the things that we hate to admit is that, and I'm just gonna spill the beans, a lot of people donate because they want something in return. So we're talking about reciprocity, and that's okay. They want their name in the annual report. They want their name to be broadcasted as a donor or a sponsor, an event. And we're more than happy to do that. Like that, they want naming rights maybe to a building, or we see that at universities all the time. And that's okay because they're paying for it. So when you're thinking about the value that you can give to your donors outside of the tax deduction, I feel like everyone, oh, well, it's a tax deduction. As long as you're 501c3, it's a tax deduction, right? So everyone kind of knows that. And with the current administration that we have, I think like the threshold for itemizing has gotten so high, it made things very, very different for people who are average Joes, or average Merrell, average Heathers, even though we're not technically average, but it's made things very difficult to give, right? It's like, oh no, you have to give so much before you can start getting that tax deduction that so it's like almost not an incentive anymore. But it is very, very important to make sure that your donors are feeling appreciated, and that can be through some really cool swag, and it could be through making sure that their name is highlighted on the website, or shining them on your social media. It can be through any methods or means that you can think of, but I also want people to know it does not necessarily have to be expensive to do that. If a donor is making you, dropping off $100 to you, and you have an event coming up, say in 6 months, and you're thinking about them, you can call them up and say, hey, we're having this event, and because you are a donor and a supporter of ours, we're offering you a special rate. That's a way to do it, and it doesn't cost you anything. And if it's a fundraiser where they're coming to like bid on items, they could show up, and the next thing you know, that 20% discount that you've offered them is turned into them buying, a $10,000 boat off the showroom, and it's a win-win. And then, of course, that's part of cultivating that relationship, just checking on them, letting them know what's going on. So
yeah,
that works
with
out.
that, I do want to ask the question. So, at what level should we keep our donors engaged? We talk about the financial piece, and you said earlier, sometimes people can't give of money, but they can give of time, or they can give in-kind contributions. What are some of the levels and where folks can be engaged, even if their dollars are a little shorter than they'd like?
I'm so glad that you asked that question, Heather. COVID has really changed things up for us at my job. And I think for everybody, you can't even go into a bank right now. Everything is like drive-through, and if you can, only 2 people are allowed in the lobby at the same time. It's been making things really, really difficult to have volunteers get involved, people who can't necessarily donate monetarily, but people who can donate their time. And for nonprofits that are just starting, having volunteers, and even nonprofits that have been around for a long, long time, I would say this manpower is the most expensive thing, and it's the most precious thing, and it's one of the things we are so thankful for in the world of nonprofits, right? Just having an extra set of hands to come and reduce the burden that other people are working to try to it's just so important and so helpful. So when you talk about different levels, you have to think about what your organization is doing, first of all, because not every nonprofit can have volunteers coming and doing certain things. It's just, that's part of it. And I realized that when I was in high school and I wanted to go, there was a shelter back home for young girls who had been abandoned, and I wanted to go and I wanted to volunteer there. But what I didn't realize is that I got declined for the volunteer opportunity. And they stressed me. It wasn't because of me, but it was because of the population they had been dealing with that had been highly volatile, had been experienced severe forms of trauma, and also our close relation in age. And I was like, well, I hadn't really thought about that, but now as an old man with gray hair, I can certainly see how that could definitely have caused a conflict, So you have to think about that when you're thinking about your nonprofit. What kind of, volunteers can you have coming through the door, and what that should look like, and how can that person who's volunteering look like a mentor and or a leader, and not like a friend or somebody who, might have possibly contributed to some negative life event.
Right.
And so we have to be very careful about that. But what I will say is this, and this is one thing that I love about a lot of nonprofits I volunteer for. They always kind of ask me, where and what do I fit in? So I use my current talents to do what I can do. Right now, we have people who come through the doors of some of the organizations I'm on the board of, and they're like, well, I'm not really good at folding clothes, but I can write for you, or I can manage social media, or I can definitely, work a clothing closet, or I'm more than happy to come in 3 times a week to help feed people. Or, I used to do hospice care, and I'm retired, so I like to come in and kind of like work with people of this age group. Or I'm a teacher, so maybe I can help tutor. And that's how you really have to think about your donor levels also, because what will happen is when those people have been volunteering with you for a really long time, they get a very unique view of how the organization runs. And they also get a very unique and very rare view of the outcomes from that organization's work. And those are oftentimes your best ambassadors. So when I was talking about that earlier, they kind of are all intertangled with each other. But I have found that not only with Mercy, not only with Beginnings SC, not only with Community and Schools of the Midlands, but oftentimes your volunteers are the ones who are like, let's do this, and I'm going to make sure that I wave this flag for you as high as possible so that everyone knows how great you are.
That's awesome. That's a great segue into my very final question. So, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question, but what role does telling the story of your experience with a nonprofit or even a business, what role does PR and having those conversations and telling those stories have when it comes to marrying that with development? Like, so, you know, we talk about the story, we talk about the experiences that people have had working with nonprofits. How does that tie into raising funds and you know, having quality donor management?
Well, you know, I always get tripped up around this particular area because I can see how they connect to each other, development and marketing, but they really do have very two different strategies, ultimately with the same end goal. And oftentimes, you know, I feel like in nonprofit world, even in for-profit world, corporate world, what happened is they all kind of get blurred together. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times people don't necessarily know what marketing really is. They think it's getting a creative, throwing a billboard up, and you're like, but no, it's actually way more detailed than that. It's way more specific than that. It's one area where you're putting together this campaign, and you're going to shoot it out to the public, and you're actually going to measure the results that you're looking for, whatever that goal may be. And then on the development side, you know, it's always will be the end goal will be to get more donors and more dollars coming through the door. Always, it's always going to be the same thing. Yeah. And so they intersect at that level of, well, we want to make sure that we get. I'm going to throw a nice round number out there. We want to get $10,000 in the door by the end of the year. And we came up with this idea. Let's give it to marketing and see if they can turn this into something. And so marketing would take that creative aspect with the end goal, knowing that it's supposed to be $10,000 at the end of the year. And they will work to try to find a solution and try to understand who that audience would be they would get donations from, and also where it should be placed in the market and all this other very detailed, intricate stuff, and also have to track it so that at the end of the year, when it comes back, you can say, this is what we did and this is how we got the $10,000 and it worked out to be a successful campaign. A lot of people have had to shift, and we've heard the word pivot. I feel like I've heard the word pivot more this year than I ever. It reminds me of that Friends episode where, what is it? Ross is carrying that dog on couch up he's screaming out, pivot, pivot, pivot. I've heard that many times this year. Yeah. And what I would say is that, yes, pivoting is part of running a business. Whether you're brand new or whether you've been doing it for, 120 years, you always have to pivot. But in the middle of this pandemic, or wherever we're at on this timeline of this pandemic, I think we have all learned that we have had to readjust our expectations. I think we've all learned that we have to figure out another way to be creative. And I think we all have learned to kind of like rest. And I think those are very, very important factors, because we would truly run ourselves into the ground trying to hit these same goals as we would under normal circumstances. We know these are abnormal circumstances and we can't continue to move that way. We have to think differently in order to make sure that we're maintaining our level of quality service that we always are. If you don't mind, I wanted to go back and tie the loop up. I mentioned a lot of acronyms earlier. I mentioned AAF, AFP, and PRS.
You were giving everybody a shout out.
So I want to talk to organizations that are nonprofits, and just to kind of, in the realm of like raising dollars and getting off the ground. I'm a firm believer of providing resources. I can't stand when I get on a Zoom call and they're just like talking. I'm like, let me give you some answers. One of the things that, if you are new to the world of the nonprofit and the world of development, even for-profit and nonprofit, there's an organization called the Association of Fundraising Professionals. I happen to be on that board, and I will wave their flag very high. They offer programs every month with different speakers to talk about different realms of fundraising and giving and donation. And that's a really good one to hop into. I will urge you to always make sure that you have money in your operating budget for professional development, because you're not going to get better unless you are being taught, right?
Right.
Another organization, and these two are kind of tying. There are a bunch out there. You can Google them. You can find them too that I really do appreciate and love. One is PRSA, and that's the Public Relations Society of America. And they are specifically, it's very similar to AFP, but only on the communication side. And it's something that we cannot neglect. It's something that we must, in order to make sure that our story is tight, we must invest in. And also we're going to need to know, because running a nonprofit is nothing but a tax status. Let me put that out there. You are running a business, right? It is a business, and it's a
Right.
very lucrative one. I think it's the second in South Carolina. It's like the second or third most highest grossing like business sector, and I could be wrong, but I feel like that's the last statistic I heard on that. And so part of like knowing how to communicate and pivot, because there may be a day where you have to do a crisis management. There may be a day when you're putting on an event, you're going to have to know how that event needs to go. There's going to be a day when you're going to have to work on something. You're to get your press release out to let the world know. And you're going to have a little bit of solid knowledge around that. So I have so often I have friends who, you know, I'll draft a press release for them and they'll send it back to me and they'll change the formatting and they'll change the wording up. And I'm like, well, I get what you're trying to do, but this is actually going to print and you need to follow a certain print style. And you also need to follow the standard template of a press release. Otherwise, it's not going to get picked up. So I'm moving all this stuff back because it's like this on purpose, even though to you it might look a little weird. And then oftentimes I will provide them with a copy of like something in print that kind of mirrors it. And they're like, oh, I've never noticed that before. But the reason is because you don't really have like a background in that. And that's okay. But it also means that, you know, open yourself up to like learning about it. I think I'm always a fan of jumping and stuff like that.
Right.
And then the last organization, I'm on the board of this one too, is called American Advertising Federation.
Shout out to AAF Midlands.
This is actually a really good organization. And it's just truly, it's an organization for everyone in the world of marketing, visual communications. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's a group of fun people. And we offer programming every month, and people all over the country to talk about different aspects of marketing, brand building, talking, storytelling. I mean, it's so unique, so diverse. I want to give a shout out to our past president, Joey Wallace, our current president, Jeff Lawler, and also our vice president, Sam Bond, and just everyone else on the board. They've been such a great group of people. They do excellent work. And the overall premise of that one is not only the program, and that's one aspect of it, but what I really love about them.
The programs.
What I really love about AAF is that they also work to help nonprofit organizations in the community. And so it's so cool because you get this professional level teaching, lecturing, but you also get this hands-on community involvement too. So it's so cool, it's so unique. And I always encourage people to sign up for that, get involved with that, be part of your community. And of course, any other social clubs you can think of, any local Rotaries perhaps would be good to join. Your local chamber would be excellent to join because you get to meet people and network and socialize and expand your network. And also the Junior League of Columbia here in Columbia, the Junior League, the one here in Columbia is a very strong one. And also your local churches. And I don't know everyone's faith, but I know that we live in the Bible Belt, and churches are very, very supportive of nonprofit organizations and people who have good causes. So those are just some that I'm just throwing off the top of my head that I think that would be definitely helpful to people as they are building their brand for their nonprofit and getting the word out.
Awesome. Great resources, great insight. Merrell, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We so appreciate you and all of your wisdom. And I just thank you so much for sharing all that tonight. I know that there are a number of individuals that I know of who are looking to start nonprofits or who are looking to start a small business, and they need capital. And so it was full of gems that are able to yield some high power results. So thank you so much for.
You're welcome. Y'all, I know that, and Lord, I know you've already said thank you, but I do want to give one more. There's an organization that has just been created by Merrell Hayes, and it's called Stopgap Solutions. And she has a very, very long tenure in the nonprofit section. So if you are trying to start your nonprofit and you feel like you just need a little help getting through the door, getting things off the ground, please feel free to find her. I think she's on Facebook. I think it is Stopgap Solutions. And she can help you get right, or if she can't do it, I'm sure she can refer you to somebody else who can. And if you're trying to get some PR work done, well, you know your girl Heather Singleton right here.
I'm here.
For you. She has done some fabulous work. I have had the pleasure of being able to work with her before, and just her energy is enough to make you feel like you can do anything you absolutely want to do.
Thank you. Even the stuff you don't want to do.
That's right. Even the stuff you don't want to do.
Listen, everybody needs that friend where they can just pick up the phone and text like, "Hey, can you be a guest on the show? Come and speak at an event for me." You know, so you need those folks.
You need those people. The last nugget I'm going to give everyone, I guess, before we hop off is just remember you can't eat an entire elephant in one big bite. You have to do it in small bites at a time. So just, take it slow. You're going to see a lot of things and they're going to be new to you. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. I don't know, but just know that there are people around you who have. So feel free to reach out to them and just take your time and understand that baby steps make one big step at the end of the day.
That's awesome. That one touched the heart. And next time you can just at me, okay?
Well, at Heather Singleton, because I'm a fan of being direct. You right there. Yes. It wasn't built in a day. Take one step at a time, okay?
Definitely, definitely. Thank you again for joining us tonight. And thank you guys for joining us via Facebook Live tonight. And for those of you who are going to catch the replay, make sure that you're taking good notes because these were some really great nuggets that Merrell was dropping tonight. I do want to let folks know where you can reach me. I am at Strategic PRC on Facebook and Twitter, and I can be reached on Instagram at @HeatherPope. And if you are looking to find out more information about public relations services, corporate training, or development services, please visit strategicprconsulting.com. Join us next week. I'm so excited about next week's guest. Not only is she just a brilliant mind, but she also happens to share my bloodline. So join us next week when we're talking about the power of community relations, where Shanique Brown is going to be our guest. She is over community relations work for the Charleston area with Comcast Cable, and she also owns her own small business with Charleston Chewies. So join us next week, same time, same channel. We look forward to seeing you then. And until that point, remember to be strategic in all that you do. Have a great night, y'all.
Bye, everyone.